And so let's talk about the DNS. So in DNS, we're going to do discuss about the domain, custom domains. We're going to optionally probably set up custom domain names. Now, in this one, you require some of the domain to be available to configure this. So we probably will just mimic something. Then we create Azure DNS zones. We create or delegate DNS domains, add DNS record sets, which is NS records and other the record sets. We plan for private DNS zones, and those are the stuff we can kind of discuss in this session, but we will try and cover up demo if time permits. So when it comes to identity domains and custom domains, so when you create a new subscription, a new Azure AD domain, default domain is created. So the default domain, if you look at in the screenshot here, so it's got the onmicrosoft.com. This is your default domain. So whenever you create your directory and you give a name, so whether you give a company name or so example Contoso or any domain name you give, your company domain name. So company domain name .onmicrosoft.com is your default domain. It gets created regardless, and you cannot remove it. So you have to have one. And that's for your safety purposes. So when you point a custom domain and you use a custom domain, you always have a backup domain available for anything goes wrong. And that's provided by Microsoft as soon as you create that subscription and the new Azure AD domain. Okay, so the initial domain name looks like this form, which I just mentioned. So anything you give a name, it gets postfixed by onmicrosoft.com. You can customize and change the name by supplying custom domain name. So you can put say contoso.org or something like that. You can then start adding the name. When custom domain names are added, be mindful, you probably need to supply the SSL certificate, and it's recommended to go for a wildcard certificate to avoid some of the other configuration issues. Okay. So in demo, we will create DNS zones and delegate some of the DNS zones. We will add record sets. So within the add record sets, we have a different type of record sets we will be adding. And in this one, it's a collection of records in a zone. So these are the type of record sets we can add. And we put down a TTL, time to live. So time that's where it defines how long it's going to be alive, and then it recycles or refreshes. And then we assign the IP addresses with that one. A record set cannot contain two identical records. So if I put down a record with this name, like hello world dot my domain name, and if I put down IP addresses, even put down different IP addresses for the two separate record, but it starts with same name, it doesn't allow. So you must use one for that particular type of record. Changing the drop-down type, which is a CNAME, TXT, and there are different type of records are available. Changes the information required as well. So when you change a record, you're probably asking for IP address. CNAME, you will ask for the domain name or the path. TXT record is something different. So every type you change, the parameter it requires, the details it requires, it changes as well. Okay. For the private DNS zone, you can use your custom domain names, provide name resolution for VMs within the VNet and between VNets as well. And automatic host name record management happens where that removes the need for the custom domain DNS resolution solutions as well. So in this scenario, how this works. So say your VM, which need to request a domain request because it's pointed to a domain. So when the request goes out, the Azure DNS then identifies the request and responds with the private IP, which IP it needs to be pointed to. So say this VM is our one of the incoming like request VM or something like, it's a initial request and it says, okay, fine, I need to connect to database on 1433, but I want to point that domain to db.contoso.lab. And the contoso.lab has IP address, which is say 10.10.1.100, something like that. Then it goes to the DNS, Azure DNS, and Azure DNS translate that domain into IP address. So that then VM communicates with that IP address and brings the all the requests, responses they need. Okay, excuse me. And private DNS zones available in all Azure regions, and use all common DNS record types as well. Okay, so just be mindful in terms of the exam. If you're attempting, you might ask for certain type of options in a combination. Okay, we'll just keep this slide for now for the when we go into lab demonstration. Great, so it's a time for demonstration. So let's jump on to demo here. Okay, let me just find the demo session here. Okay, here we go. So what I have done, I logged into Azure portal, and here we're going to start with the virtual network demo first, VNet. So I'm going to type virtual network. I hope this is visible to you properly. Let me just enlarge the screen to, okay, 150% is perfect. Okay, I hope this is visible perfectly fine. Now I'm going to hit create. When I need to create a new virtual machine, I just had like, virtual network. I need to just create new. I need to supply the correct lab, which is my subscription, XLab, correct subscription, correct resource group. If I don't have a resource group, I can just hit on create new and supply a name. So I'm going to create AZ104 RG1. So when I spin up this VNet, it will create this resource group. And I'm going to give a name for, excuse me, VNet 1. I will create this VNet into its US region, so it looks okay. Now I'm going to go into the IP address. The IP address range here I want to define for IPv4 is I want to give, say, let's use, I think, yeah, different type of addresses we will use. Okay. So I'm going to put down the IPv address space is 10.40.0.0 slash, let's make 20 instead of 16. Okay. So I've added this, and here it's telling me that it doesn't have a subnet. So I need to create a subnet as well. So I will give a subnet a name, and that's, let's create subnet 0. And the range I'm going to give, because I started the range here 10.40. So I want to make sure it's assigned to that subnet as well. So 10.40.0.0 forward slash, let's put a 24 range, okay, 256. So 251 usable IP address is +5. Azure reserves this, the one we have seen it. Okay, I'm going to leave the NAT gateway as is. And if I want to create any service endpoint to start with, I can create it from here, or I can just create that later on. So I just create just keep it simple. I created subnet 0. I can now go to security. If you need to put down or access your VMs not over the RDP, but if you want to host access it securely, you would probably set up Bastion host. If you want to enhance the DDoS network protection, you will enable here. And if you want to enable firewall, you can do this as well. We're not going to do this right now. So let's go next. I'm not going to put down tags, but it's highly recommended that when you're actually working in production environment or in your organization environment, make sure you put the best practice of assigning tags. Okay, I'm going to hit create because the validation has successfully completed. Once it's created, what we will do at the same time, we will try and create another subnet as well. Brilliant, it's ready. So we'll go into VNet, then we go to subnet, and this is how demonstrate like, there are multiple subnets can be associated with this. So I'm going to add another subnet, probably follow the range, but you must have seen it, like, this automatically assigns the increment of 40.1. So here 40.0. So I just need to give a subnet name. So subnet 1. I will keep the rest of the things default because I'm not going to change it. I'll hit save. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to use deploy some of the VMs and everything. So I have a template downloaded. So let's go into shell, create to shell. Because I'm setting up this for first time, I will need to attach storage. I need to mount it. So it just takes about 30, 40 seconds or a minute. So let's wait for it. Okay, it's nearly there. Okay, so I have some template files created. So let me just quickly show you how that looks like. Okay, so I have a template file and I also have a parameter. So if I just open this up on Visual Studio, it will show you what does that look like. Okay, so I have it's creating a VM, it's creating, uh, like it sets up number of VM. Let me just try and enlarge if you can see it. Yeah, brilliant. So here it sets up number of VMs, admin passwords, and so on. All the different type of configuration, what I needed, it creates in here. Okay, I'm going to close this and let me open the parameter file so you can see what is passed in a parameter. So in parameter, we passing the VM size and we only passing the username, admin username, which is student. Okay, great. Let's close this. Now, first of all, if I want to use those template, I must upload it. So I'm just going to hit upload. Unfortunately, you have to upload one by one because when you try with the multiple upload, it only uploads the first file you have selected. So when upload, so parameter file is uploaded and the template file. Brilliant. So I got both of them here. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to set up a resource group name and also give a command for new resource group deployment where I'm going to put down template name. And there's a JSON file is pointed with that. So parameter JSON. And when I hit enter, it's going to start creating, like it's going to ask for the password. Obviously, we're creating VM. So I'm going to pass password. And once I've entered, it's going to go in asynchronous process to create all the VMs and related resources. So if you remember, we only created like VNet and the resource group. So if I go in here and say go to resource group, Here, I only have one resource, which is VNet. So once this goes in, kicks off, and creates the process, you will see the further resources getting created. So let's give a minute or two. Brilliant. So it kicked off, it succeeded, and it created what we need here. Now, I'm just going to minimize this screen and let's refresh and see if everything I needed is created. So this is how you can use ARM templates and create through PowerShell. Okay. Now, excuse me. So we did looked at the VM size in the parameter file. We looked at how it's getting defined, all the details and everything, and we used a command called new AZ resource group deployment to create this all the type of resources using a template file and parameter. Okay, excuse me. Now, because we already have our VNet, we have our VM created. So I got two VMs created, VM0 and VM1. The next thing we're going to do is create a public IP address. So VNet creation is done, but just in case if you want to do a quick check here, so you can see it's got settings where connected devices, address space, subnets, and so on. But now, first thing, we need to create a public IP address. So I'm going to use a resource called public IP addresses. Within this, I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to give the correct resource group and region which I want to create, because I'm actually creating everything within the same region. I don't need to set any tag at the moment for. Okay, required information is missing. Ah, sorry, I just. Yeah, we forgot the name. So the name I want to give, say, AZ10404 public IP address 0. So I'm going to create IPv4, keep the ASCII to standard, zone redundant, and I got as a regional. We're not setting up as a global, and other settings here. Dynamic is automatic, only got static, and we're going to select the Microsoft network. Ideal timeout is 4 minutes, so we'll leave that as is. We don't need a DNS label for now. Let's review. Now the validation has passed. Let's create it. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to create another, obviously we can go and check this. And here you have the public IP addresses, which got created here. But I'm going to create another public IP because we got two VMs, remember? So let me create another one. Okay, so I've given a number 1 as, and then let's review and create. Okay, so now I have this another IP address is created as well. So I don't know if you remember the other one and this one is both different. So this is ending with 18 and the other one, which is PIP0, ending with 153. So these are the two IP addresses we got assigned now. So the now next thing we're going to do is we need to look at the VNet, and within the VNet, we're going to check what are the connected devices are there? Because we got two VMs and the VMs are associated with VNet, it actually sets the connected devices as network interface 0 and network interface 1 automatically. So we already got this. Now what we're going to do, we're going to click on the network interface, and within the network interface, we have lots of other configurations where I can hit on IP configuration. I can see the IP configs 1, and within the IP config 1, if I here, I'm going to select, in this case, static. And so I'll leave the private IP as a static, but I'm also going to assign the public IP, which is for 0. I'm going to assign PIP 0. Okay. Let me hit save. And I'm going to repeat this task for another network interface as well. Okay, let's wait. So it's running in the background at the moment, so I can continue with the other task quickly just to save time. Okay, so I'm going to give a static, and within the public IP configuration, this one is PIP1. So the previous one we assigned public IP 0. Now this is a public IP 1. Okay. So the both are updating right now. So let's wait for the update to complete. We have both network interfaces are updated with the public IP address. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make note of those public IP addresses. And how would we do that? Because it's already associated to VNet and VNet associated with VMs, I can literally click on VM and copy those IP addresses. So let me just copy into Visual Studio. VM0, IP is this, and let's check for VM1 as well. So I got this VM1. Okay, so I got this both logged, which will be needed for the further steps, what we're going to perform. Okay, so this is how we have associated public IP to VNet and associated with VM. So it just reflects directly there. Okay. The next step, we're going to look at how we can actually set up NSG and see the connectivity to the VM. So I will go into, first of all, say, let's go back to the VM0. So when I go into VM0, I have option to connect to VM using RDP. But when I do this, it's complaining about port. So the RDP port 3389 is not open. If I cross-check in the networking, I don't have the inbound or outbound rules have been set up either. So instead of setting up on the VM level or any effective rule set here, what I'm going to typically do is associate NSG. So to do that, what I need to do is, first thing first, I will need to go and search for network security groups. So I can go into network security group, create a new one. We're going to select the correct resource group. Subscription is already selected. And I'm going to give a name. Okay. So I'll give one name. I'm going to skip tag for here and then review and create. Brilliant. So I have now created NSG. and wait for that spin up to do. So completion of the deployment. Okay, it's quite fast. So I got the NSG got created. I can go into NSG and look at the setting area. So within the setting area, I got inbound and outbound security role. But also on the overview tab, I can see the default inbound and outbound security roles got created here. So I have a default deny all and outbound also default deny all out. So this is deny all in, deny all out. So this is already set up, which are the standard one, which I cannot delete. You can see it's grayed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow RDP incoming rule. Yeah. So to do that, I can just click on add, type the source is any port. I'll leave it to star. So it's coming from any source port, incoming to any destination for now. And here, instead of custom, I can choose number of predefined ports, predefined services and associated ports. What I need here is RDP. So when I select RDP, it automatically sets the port and also protocol. The only thing I need to do is define the action, which I like to allow, and define a priority. Okay. So I'll put the priority for 300 just for, so if I want to execute anything as a high priority, I can just use 100, 200. Okay. So I can just add this and it will just create a security role. So now you can see the security role has been created. But the NSG is not really associated with any network interface at the moment because we just created. So then what I'm going to do is under the setting area, there's a network interface. So within network interface, I'm going to associate this NSG with available network interface. So I have NIC0, which I'm going to associate. And I'll do the same thing for NIC1 as well. Okay, we're just waiting for that response. So now NIC0 has been associated. I'm going to do NIC1 as well. So what I have done, the network security group now associated with NIC, which has the subnet and IP is associated with. Brilliant. So both association is now completed. Now what I'm going to do is can go back into the virtual machine. Now, while this association is happening, just in case, if you are seeing that it's really, really slow and taking a long time, it's always recommended that you stop your virtual machine and then do the association. While doing this, it will be like, a lot faster. But here, what I'm going to do, because I've done it, I'll just give a quick restart just to make sure it's everything is associated correctly. Okay, let's monitor like the restart is happening perfectly fine. Okay, it should be done shortly. So let's wait. Brilliant. So it has now restarted the machine. What I'm going to do now next is click on connect. And now it's checking the RDP and it should be either warning or just clear green. But it shouldn't give a critical error that it's not available. Brilliant. So now it's found that 3389 has been permitted. I can click on download RDP file and hit on open. When I connect this RDP, it's going to prompt me for username and password, which is we created student as admin user. And I created a password, which I just entered. You can see now I can connect to the RDP. Previously it was complaining, so I couldn't connect. Now this session is going to set up. So brilliant. We got the VM now just started. Okay. While VM is starting up, so next thing we're going to do is work on the DNS. So let's do a quick DNS, private DNS zone exercise as well. So I'm going to do the search for a resource called private DNS zones. So within this, I'm going to hit create, and in this one, I'm going to set up, assign the correct resource group, and probably let's use Contoso. Okay, I'll leave the resource group. We cannot change it anyway because in private DNS zone, it's going to be associated with the subscription. Next tag, we don't need to set tag for now for this exercise. Okay, validation pass, hit create. Should be deployed very shortly. Okay, so we have got that deployment done. So I'm going to go to the setting of the private DNS zone we have created. Within this, I'm going to go under the settings, watch your network links, and going to add a link. So I'm going to give a link name. So let's give okay. So I've given a name, and I'm going to just select the virtual network here, which is the VNet one we have created. And I'm going to also enable auto registration. So when the new server gets registered, it automatically gets selected. Okay. Now, after that, we're going to just hit OK and wait for that setup to be completed. Brilliant. So I've got the link created now. So I'm expecting by creating this link, this VM0 and VM1 should be auto-registered. So let's go and check in overview. Brilliant. So I got the VM0 and VM1 auto-registered, and their private IP you can see. Yeah. So the next thing we quickly going to check is through PowerShell. Make sure the domain name, the DNS is getting resolved. So here I'm going to pass on some command. Sorry, 1 second. Some reason it's got disconnected. So I'm going to pass, say, ns lookup AZ10404 hyphen VM0, which is the name we have given contoso.org. So this is a domain expecting this has been assigned and it will return the IP address of it. So now, okay, it cannot reach. Let's go and quickly check on The association is there. We're going to go and check the VM 0. Okay, that's all looking good, healthy. Okay. So that's my bad. So here we literally need to check this NS lookup within the VM itself because it's already been assigned the DNS zone underneath that. So I'm going to go and open PowerShell here within the VM itself and run as admin because I'm actually performing NS lookup. So here, if I type, sorry if the font is not that great. So let me just set the font level to higher. Okay, now it should be looking good. So NS lookup now AZ 104-04-VM0 dot contoso dot org. Now you can see this IP address is returning, which is perfectly fine. But if I do exactly the same for VM1, it should return for VM1 as well. Brilliant. So it's got the private IP addresses are returning. So this is how, like, we created this private DNS, private DNS zones, and this is how we tested. Okay, so as a part of the next quick exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to create some DNS zone. So for that, we need to make sure, like, we have some of the domain we're using, which is available. So probably I'll use godaddy.com/domains. So this is a page where we can actually search if this domain is available. So I'm going to put down one really random name. So I know exactly this domain is available. So this is available and I can purchase this, yes. So that means I'm not really using anyone else's domain. Okay. So this is for the configuration only, but for your deployment, you should be having a real domain name purchased, and wherever the association you need to do, you can just use that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to do a DNS zone. So we're going to create DNS zone first. And within the DNS zone, I'm going to hit create, assign a correct resource group. This zone is not going to be a child or an existing zone already hosted in Azure DNS. This is going to be one of those parent ones. So I'm going to give a name here, unique name. So which unique name we just copied, like the one from the DNS. So I'm going to give az104contoso.org. Now let's go and create this DNS zone. Okay, brilliant. So it's done. I'm going to go to resource, and here, what I'm going to look at is DNS zone blade. I need. Okay, so we got the overview, we got NS records created. Keep in mind, like, when you have a custom domain, you will be pointing. So say, let's assume I purchased that domain from GoDaddy or some another domain provider. It will ask me where this domain needs to be pointed. So there, it will ask me about four NS record I can set. So that's NS1, 2, 3, 4. These are the record I've been given, which I can point it. So when I point it, the domain name registrar will point that domain to this location. So here I'm going to create one record set, and I'm going to give a name. Let's give a name. So because I'm using VM0, I'm going to use a VM0, and the record is going to be A, alias is going to be no, TTL, which is 1 hour is enough. And for the IP address, which if you remember the public IP address we recorded, so I'm going to use the VM0 public IP address here. And press OK. So it created one of those DNS zone record set. And the same thing I'm going to do with VM1 as well. Okay. So I've got two A records are now created, which is where the domain is pointing. And to keep a note of this NS record, which if you have a real domain to be pointed, you can just use that. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a command in a Cloud Shell. Sorry, not that one. I don't want to create record set. But I'm going to write down a command here. So if I just put down domain name, correct domain name here. So the domain name I've created here. Let's pick up the right one. So AZ. I'm just going to enlarge this so you can see what I'm doing. It's going to verify the domain name is correct here, what we have set up. So if I just click on the area code, this is the domain name how we want. Okay, so that's perfect. Domain name is okay. Now what we need is NS record to be copied. And this is why I was suggesting that NS record needs to be kept in mind. So I'm going to copy this. What I'm doing is I'm just building a command here, the one we want to give. Okay, so now I got this NS lookup command, which I can now then copy, go to Cloud Shell. Let's wait for the connectivity. Okay, now we're going to paste that command, enter, and you can see this. It's with this domain, it's bringing this IP address, which is associated with VM0. Now, if I run the same command again, but here I'm going to change to the VM1, and it returns the VM1 IP address. So this is how the DNS zone can be set up and work together. So here we finished the demo for the first part of the session. We quickly going to run some of the slides. So let me just spin up so we can just finish this. So I got this another slide. So let me just bring this up.